You'll miss sweetheart. Go home before you embarrass yourself. Sergeant Michael Ducker ripped the rifle out of Lennox Harrow's hands, slammed the buttstock into the dirt at her feet, and shoved her shoulder so hard she stumbled backward into the bench. The Marines behind him roared with laughter. Ducker kicked her ammunition box, sending rounds scattering across the concrete. Go paint your nails, Barbie. This ain't dress up. He spat near her boot. What Ducker did not know was that the woman he had just shoved had buried more men through a sniper scope in Kannar province than he had ever trained in his entire career as a Marine marksmanship instructor. Before we go any further, if you're watching this, do me a favor, tap that subscribe button. Right now, stay with this story all the way to the end, because what Lennox does to this Marine sergeant is something you will not want to miss. And drop a comment telling us what city you are watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel, and every single comment tells us there's another person out there who believes that respect is something you earn, not something you demand. Now back to Oceanside. The range was packed that Saturday morning. Civilians, off-duty military, a few old-timers who came every weekend because their wives were tired of them being home. The sun was already high, the kind of Southern California light that makes everything look washed out and honest at the same time. Lennox Harrow had pulled into the parking lot at 7:15, paid her fee, signed the waiver, and walked to bay number 4 without making eye contact with anyone. She had come for one reason. She needed to hear the sound of her own rifle again. She needed to remember who she was before she forgot for good. She did not know she was being watched from bay number 2. Sergeant Ducker had been running his mouth for 20 minutes. He had 3 corporals and a lance corporal, with him all Marines from the Weapons Training Battalion at Camp Pendleton, all wearing civilian clothes because Saturday was supposed to be their day off. Ducker was 36 years old, built like a man who knew how to bench his own body weight, and wanted you to know it, and he had a reputation at Pendleton for being the best marksmanship instructor on base. He told people that, often, loudly. He had a distinguished rifleman badge and a mouth that wrote checks his personality struggled to cash. And Lennox Harrow, with her blonde hair pulled through the back of a faded Padres cap, her red windbreaker, and her jeans that had seen better decades, looked to him like nothing at all. Boys, look at this, Ducker said, elbowing the Marine to his right. Chick rolls up here with a rifle case like she knows what she's doing. $10 says Daddy bought it for her birthday. One of the corporals, a kid named Hollis, chuckled nervously. Come on, Sergeant, leave her be. Leave her be, Hollis. Do you see what she's got in that case? That's a Remington 700. That's a real rifle. She's going to hurt herself with that thing. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Hey, miss, you want a hand setting up? I don't bite. Lennox did not turn. She opened her case. She took out the rifle. She checked the action. She set the rifle down muzzle safe and opened her ammunition box. Did she just ignore me? Ducker said, grinning. Hollis? I think she just ignored me. Maybe she's got headphones in. She doesn't have headphones in. She's got ears protection. That's different. That means she can hear me just fine. Ducker raised his voice. Miss Hay, I'm talking to you. Lennox turned her head. She looked at Ducker for exactly 2 seconds. Then she turned back to her rifle. It was the longest 2 seconds of Ducker's morning. Something had passed between them in those 2 seconds, and the only person at the range who understood what it was Lennox. Ducker thought he had seen a pretty woman brushing him off. What he had actually seen was a woman cataloging him the way she had once cataloged targets through a scope at 600 yards. She had noted the way he stood, the tension in his shoulders, the fact that he was right-handed, and the fact that his ego was a load-bearing wall holding up a building with very thin foundations. She had decided he was not a threat. She had decided he was not worth her attention. She had decided to give him the mercy of being ignored. Ducker did not like being given mercy. He especially did not like being given mercy by a woman in a red windbreaker. All right, he said to his guys, loud and performative. Watch this, watch and learn. He walked down the line. He walked the 10 yards between Bay 2 and Bay 4 like he was walking into a bar he owned. He stopped at the edge of her bay just outside the yellow line, arms, crossed, head-cocked, smile stretched across his face. Hi there, he said. I just wanted to come over and say I think it's awesome what you're doing. A lot of women are scared to try this stuff. Lennox did not look up. She was loading her magazine. 5 rounds, slow, deliberate. I'm serious, Ducker said. A lot of women never even pick up a firearm their whole lives, and here you are, showing up. That takes guts. She loaded the 5th round. She set the magazine down. So I figured, Ducker said maybe you could use a little help. I'm a Marine. I instruct marksmanship over at Pendleton. I've trained probably 1,000 shooters, and I'd be happy to walk you through the basics. No charge. Just because I believe in what you're doing. Lennox picked up her earmuffs. She held them in her hand. She looked at him finally, full face, full eye contact, and her expression was so flat, so perfectly neutral, that for a half second Ducker forgot what he was saying. Thank you, she said. Her voice was low, even. I'm all right. Yeah, but see, the thing is, most people think they're all right. Most people don't know what they don't know. That's why they hire guys like me. Well, Lennox said, I'm not hiring anyone today. She put her earmuffs on. She turned toward the targets. She was done with him. Ducker's smile tightened. Behind him, Hollis and the other Marines were watching. He could feel the weight of their eyes on the back of his neck. He had walked down there to be the big man, to play the hero, and she had thanked him and dismissed him in the span of 7 words. In front of his guys, in front of the whole range. He could not walk back to Bay 2. Not yet. Not like this. Tell you what, Ducker said loud enough that she could hear him through the earmuffs. Let's make it fun. Lennox lifted one side of her muff. Excuse me. Let's make it fun. You and me. A little friendly contest. 5 shots, 100 yards. Closest group wins. I'll put up $100. You put up $100. Winner takes all. I'm not interested. Come on, what are you scared? Lennox let the muff fall back against her ear. She did not answer. She did not look at him. Ducker laughed. He turned back toward his Marines and spread his arms wide. She's scared, boys. She's scared. Hollis spoke up. Sergeant, let's just go back. She doesn't want to shoot with us. No. I want to see this. I want to see this woman shoot. He turned back to Lennox and raised his voice again. Miss, come on, it's $100. That's a tank of gas and lunch. Be a sport. Lennox lowered her rifle. She laid it carefully on the shooting mat. She turned and faced him. And for the first time that morning, Michael Ducker saw her eyes without the sun in them. He did not know what he was looking at. He thought he was looking at a woman who was about to back down. $100, she said. $100. 5 shots, 100 yards, closest group. That's right. Your targets or mine. Ducker blinked. What? Your targets or mine? If I'm shooting a contest, I want to know whose paper we're shooting on. So nobody has any complaints after. Something small and cold slid down the back of Ducker's neck. It was the first hint, the first tiny whisper that he might have misread the woman in the red windbreaker. He brushed it off. He always brushed those things off. We'll use the range's targets, he said. Official, fresh. Range master puts them up. Fine. And we'll use my rifle. Same weapon. Fair fight. Lennox's mouth moved. It was not a smile. It was something quieter than that. No, she said. We shoot our own rifles. You're a Marine marksmanship instructor. You should be able to shoot with anything. And I'm more comfortable with what I brought. Your rifle's a hunting rifle. My rifle is my rifle. Take it or leave it. Ducker's jaw worked. Hollis behind him made a small sound that might have been a swallowed laugh. Ducker turned his head sharply. Hollis coughed into his fist. Fine, Ducker said. Fine, your rifle, my rifle. 100 yards, 5 shots. Closest group. Put your money on the bench. What? Put your money on the bench. I'll put mine next to it. Range master holds it. Winner collects. That's how we did it where I come from. Where you come from, Ducker echoed. He was smiling again, but the smile had lost its earlier confidence. It was a different smile now, a smile that was buying time. Where's that? Lennox reached into her back pocket. She pulled out a folded $100 bill. She walked past him. She walked to the bench that sat between Bay 2 and Bay 3. She laid the bill flat on the wood. She looked back at him. I'm waiting, Sergeant. Ducker had not told her his rank. He had told his guys. He had probably said it 10 times in the last half hour. Hollis had called him Sergeant just moments before. She had been listening. Of course she had been listening. He told himself that was all it was. She had ears. She had heard. It meant nothing. But the cold thing at the back of his neck was still there. He walked to the bench. He took out his wallet. He pulled out 5 20s. He laid them next to her 100. The bills sat there side by side like they were waiting for something. The range master, a silver-haired civilian named Ray, who had worked the line for 22 years, walked over with a clipboard tucked under his arm. Ray had seen every kind of shooter that Oceanside could produce. He looked at the money, he looked at Lennox, he looked at Ducker. "You two betting on the range," Ray said. "Friendly contest," Ducker said. "Not on my line, you're not. Range rules, no gambling." Ducker opened his mouth. Lennox spoke first. "It's not gambling, sir. It's a gift exchange. He wants to give me $100 and I want to give him $100, and we're going to let the targets decide who gets whose." Ray looked at her for a long moment. The corner of his mouth twitched. "Gift exchange," he said. "Yes, sir. 5 shots, 100 yards." "That's correct, sir." Ray looked at Ducker. He looked at the bills. He looked back at Lennox. And whatever he saw on her face, he saw a fraction of a second before Ducker did, because Ray was older and had seen more and knew how to read the people who walked onto his line. "I'll hold the bills," Ray said quietly, "and I'll call the shots. Fresh paper, new targets. Nobody touches a rifle till the range is safe." "We clear crystal," Ducker said. "Yes, sir," Lennox said. Ray walked back to his booth. He picked up the radio. He called a ceasefire. The shooters on the line lowered their weapons, unloaded, stepped back. Ray walked the targets himself. He put up 2 fresh silhouettes, 1 at bay, 2 for Ducker, 1 at bay 4 for Lennox. He walked back. He called the range hot. By now, word had spread. 3 civilians from the other bays had drifted closer. A retired highway patrolman, 2 young men in UCSD sweatshirts. The Marines, all 4 of them, had abandoned Bay 2 completely and were standing behind Ducker like a pack. They were grinning. They were already celebrating. They were imagining the story they would tell at the barracks Monday morning. None of them were looking at Lennox the way Ray was looking at her. Ray was looking at her the way a man looks at something he cannot quite explain. "Sergeant Ducker shoots first," Ray announced. 5 rounds, slow fire, on my command. Ducker stepped to Bay 2. He rolled his shoulders. He stretched his neck. He put on his own ear protection. He laid down in the prone position with the kind of smooth, practiced economy of movement that announced without words that he knew what he was doing. Because he did. He was not lying when he said he was a good shooter. He was an excellent shooter. He had trophies. He had certificates. He had the Distinguished Rifleman badge. He had taught Marines who had gone on to win medals. He was going to miss something important in the next 10 minutes, and he did not know it yet. Lennox stepped back from Bay 4. She folded her arms. She stood quietly behind the yellow line. She watched him settle into his position. She watched the way he exhaled, the way he shifted his elbow, the way he adjusted his cheek weld. Her face gave away nothing, but inside her chest something very old was waking up. She had not come to Oceanside to compete. She had come to shoot her rifle in peace. She had come because her therapist had told her that reconnecting with the weapon on her own terms in a safe environment might help her sleep through the night again. She had come because the nightmares had started up again 2 weeks ago, and she did not know how to make them stop. She had come here to heal, and a man she had never met before had decided that she was a joke. She had let it go. She had ignored him. She had told herself the way she had told herself 1,000 times in 1,000 bars and grocery stores and gas stations that it was not worth her energy, that men like him would always exist, that her silence was its own kind of power. But he had kept going, and he had made it a bet, and he had stood in front of his Marines and called her scared. And something inside her, something she had spent 4 years trying to quiet, had lifted its head and looked at him across the range. Sergeant Cameron Brooks, her old spotter, used to say a thing to her when they were lying on a rooftop in Kunar Province, waiting for the shot. He used to say, "Len, you don't hunt angry. You hunt still. The stiller you are, the louder they get, and the louder they get, the easier they are to find." She was very, very still. Ducker fired his first round. It was a good shot. The crowd made a small approving noise. He fired his second, his third, his fourth, his fifth. He was smooth. He was fast. He was everything he had claimed to be. When he was done, Ray called the range cold and walked the target back himself. The Marines behind Ducker cheered. Hollis gave him a clap on the shoulder. Ducker stood up, brushed off his shirt, and turned toward Lennox with the kind of grin that a man wears when he is already counting his winnings. "Your turn, Barbie," he said. Lennox did not respond. She walked to Bay 4. She picked up her rifle. She stepped up to the line. Ray held up Ducker's target for the crowd to see before he clipped it aside. 5 rounds, tight group upper chest area of the silhouette, maybe a 3-inch spread, maybe 2.5. It was a group that would have won most contests at most ranges in Southern California on most Saturday mornings. Nice group, Sergeant, Ray said. His voice was flat. Ma'am, you're up. Lennox laid down on the mat. She did not rush. She did not showboat. She set her rifle on its bipod. She pressed her cheek to the stock. She breathed. And in that breath, that single quiet, deliberate breath, 4 years of trying to be someone smaller, fell off her shoulders like a coat she had never wanted to wear. Ducker stood 5 feet behind her with his arms crossed. He was still smirking. He was waiting to tell his Marines a funny story at dinner. He would not be telling a funny story at dinner. Ray raised his hand. He looked down the line. He made sure the range was clear. Shooter ready. Lennox did not answer with words. She answered with her trigger finger moving into its place. Range is hot, Ray said. You may fire when ready. The wind, which had been coming in off the Pacific at a steady 2 miles an hour, shifted by half a degree. Almost nobody on the line noticed. Ducker did not notice. Hollis did not notice. The 2 UCSD students did not notice. The retired patrolman might have noticed, but could not have explained why. Lennox noticed. She adjusted. Half a click. No more. And then, in a movement so small that most of the crowd missed it entirely, she took up the slack on the trigger and began to become, once again, the woman that the United States Navy had once quietly listed on a classified roster as one of the deadliest precision shooters it had ever produced. Sergeant Michael Ducker, standing behind her with his arms crossed and $100 on the bench, was about to find out what kind of woman he had just challenged to a shooting match. He was about to find out that some people do not wear their past on their sleeves. Some people wear it in their hands, in their breath, in the half-degree correction they make for a win the rest of the world cannot feel. And some people, when they have been pushed too far on a Saturday morning they had planned to spend in peace, stop being quiet. Ray lowered his hand. Lennox took up the last fraction of pressure on the trigger. The first round left the barrel. The first round struck the center of the silhouette's chest. Nobody heard it land at 100 yards. Nobody needed to. The soft crack of the rifle, the quick bounce of the bipod, the way Lennox's shoulder absorbed the recoil, like she had been doing it since before she knew how to drive, told Ray everything he needed to know before he ever walked the target back. Ducker, still standing with his arms crossed behind her, made a small sound in his throat. Half a laugh, half something else. Lucky shot, he said. Nobody answered him. Lennox cycled the bolt. Smooth, clean. The brass kicked out and rolled across the mat. She did not look at it. She did not look at anything except the thin black outline, 100 yards away. She breathed. The second round left the barrel 4 seconds after the first. Ray stood very still in his booth. He had his binoculars up. He had not moved since the first shot. Ducker could not see what Ray was seeing, but he could see Ray's jaw, and Ray's jaw had gone hard. Lucky twice, Ducker said. The grin was still there. It was just a little thinner than it had been a minute ago. Hollis behind him did not say anything. Hollis had his own pair of binoculars out. Hollis had just seen 2 rounds go through the same hole. Hollis was a 24-year-old corporal from West Virginia who had never in his entire life seen anyone put 2 rounds through the same hole at 100 yards on a range with a moving wind. He lowered the binoculars slowly. Sergeant, Hollis said. Shut up, Hollis. The third shot went out. Ducker did not hear what Hollis said next because his ears were starting to do that thing ears do when the blood in the head rises too fast. A low buzzing, a pressure behind the eyes. He had stood behind a lot of shooters in his career. He knew what it sounded like when someone was spraying. He knew what it sounded like when someone was shooting clean. He was listening to someone shoot so clean that the rhythm of it was almost musical. 4 seconds between each shot. The same 4 seconds every time. The 4th round left the barrel. One of the UCSD students whispered, "What the hell?" The 5th round left the barrel. Lennox opened the bolt. She set the rifle down on the mat. She sat up. She took off her earmuffs. She looked at nobody. She stood up, stepped back from the yellow line, and folded her hands behind her back like she was waiting at a bus stop. Ray lowered the binoculars. He did not say anything for a long moment. Then he picked up the radio and called a ceasefire, and his voice, which had been flat and even all morning, had a small crack in it that only Lennox heard. Range is cold, Ray said. I'll walk the targets. He did not walk. He marched. Ducker stood there with his arms still crossed because he could not uncross them, without admitting something was happening. He watched Ray walk 100 yards out. He watched Ray stop at the bay, two-target Ducker's target, and look at it for a second. He watched Ray keep walking. He watched Ray stop at bay 4. He watched Ray stand there for a long time. "Ray," Ducker called. "What's the verdict, Ray?" Ray did not answer. Ray pulled the target off its clip. He held it up to the sun. He tilted it. He tilted it again. He lowered it. He folded it carefully along its horizontal line and walked back toward the firing line with both targets tucked under his arm. Hollis said very quietly behind Ducker's back, "Oh my God." "Shut up, Hollis." "Sergeant, I'm just saying." "I said shut up." Ray reached the firing line. He stopped at the bench where the $200 stacks were still sitting. He set Ducker's target down first flat on the wood, the 5 holes visible to everyone, 3 inches across. A decent group, a proud group, the kind of group you showed to your dad. Then Ray set Lennox's target down next to it. Nobody moved. At first it looked like a blank target, like she had missed completely. 3 of the civilians leaned forward and squinted. One of the UCSD students made a confused noise. Hollis lifted his binoculars again, even though the target was right in front of him, as if his eyes could not be trusted. Ray pointed at the center of the silhouette. He pointed at a single ragged hole. It was not round. It was shaped like a clover, a slightly torn, slightly frayed piece of paper that looked to the untrained eye like one shot had simply landed badly. 5 rounds, Ray said. His voice was hoarse. All 5, through the same hole. Silence. Ducker laughed. It was a sharp, bad laugh. It came out of him like something he did not mean to let out. "Bull," he said. "There's no way. She missed. Look at that. She missed 4 of them. That's 1 shot and 4 wide." Ray turned his head slowly. He looked at Ducker the way a man looks at his own son when his son has done something stupid in front of company. "Sergeant," Ray said, "I was a staff sergeant in the Army in 1988. I was a rifle coach for 19 years. I'm telling you, I walked that lane myself. There are no other holes. There is no other paper disturbed. She put 5 rounds through the center of that silhouette, and 4 of them went through the hole the first one made." "That's impossible." "That's what I thought too, Sergeant. But I'm looking at it." Hollis set down his binoculars. His face was pale. He looked at Lennox. He looked at the target. He looked at Lennox again. "Ma'am," Hollis said, "where did you learn to shoot?" Lennox did not answer him. She walked to the bench. She picked up the 2 stacks of money, Ducker's and her own. She did not count them. She slid her own 100 back into her pocket. She held Ducker's 520s in her hand. She turned finally and faced Ducker full on, and the expression on her face was almost gentle. Almost. "I'd like my winnings, please." Ducker's jaw worked. His arms had uncrossed at some point without his permission. His hands were in fists at his sides. He was 20 years into a career built on being the best shooter in every room he walked into, and a woman in a red windbreaker with a ponytail sticking out the back of a Padres cap had just put 5 rounds through the same hole while he watched. He could not look at his Marines. He could not look at Ray. He could not look at the civilians. He looked at her. "Double or nothing," he said. Lennox shook her head once. "Bet's closed. Double or nothing, 50 yards, fast fire, 5 shots in 10 seconds. Sergeant, $300 on it. I got 300 in my truck. I'll go get it right now." Hollis stepped forward. "Sergeant Ducker, let's just call it. Pay the lady." "Stay out of this, Hollis." "Sergeant, I said stay out of it." Ray spoke up. His voice was quiet, but it carried. "Sergeant Ducker, the contest is over. You agreed to the terms. You shot your shots. She shot hers. She won. You pay her and you walk back to your lane and you have a nice day. That's how this works on my range. This is not over." "Yes, it is." Ducker turned to Lennox again. He was breathing through his nose now. His face was getting a color to it that was not healthy. "Who are you?" "Pardon?" "I said, who are you? Nobody shoots like that. Nobody. I've seen distinguished marksmen miss that shot. I've seen civilians who think they're cowboys miss that shot. You don't just walk up to a range on a Saturday morning and cold bore 5 rounds through the same hole unless you are somebody. So who are you?" Lennox looked at him for a long moment. The whole range was watching. The civilians, the UCSD students, the retired patrolman who had quietly lowered his own rifle and taken 2 steps closer. Hollis and the other 3 Marines standing in a loose half circle with expressions that had gone from smug to stunned to something close to embarrassed in the span of 4 minutes. "I'm nobody," Lennox said. "That's a lie." "I'm just a woman who came to shoot her rifle." "That's a lie." She held out her hand, the hand with Ducker's $100 in it. She was asking him to take his money back. Ducker did not move. "Time, keep it," she said. "I don't want your pity money." "It's not pity money, it's your money. You put it down, you lost it. I'm giving it back because I don't need it and because I'd like to leave now and I don't want to spend the afternoon explaining to a deputy why you and I got into a disagreement on a public range. I don't want your money." "Fine." She turned around and walked back to Bay 4. She laid the $100 carefully on the bench. She picked up her rifle case. She began to pack her weapon away. Ducker stood there. Hollis was the one who finally said it. Hollis was younger and Hollis was scared, and Hollis had not yet learned how to keep his mouth shut when his senior was making a career-ending mistake. "Sergeant, we should go." "Hollis, I swear to God." "We should go, Sergeant. She beat you. It was a fair contest. We all saw it. Let's just go." "I'm not leaving." "Sergeant, I am not leaving until I know who she is." Ray picked up the radio. "All shooters were going to take a 15-minute break while I speak with Sergeant Ducker privately. Clear your weapons, step back from the line. Thank you." Lennox snapped her rifle case shut. She picked it up. She lifted her ammunition box. She turned to walk toward the parking lot. Ducker stepped in front of her. "Sergeant," Ray said sharply, "step aside. I just want her name, Ray. That's all. I just want her name." Lennox stopped. She looked up at Ducker. He was 4 inches taller than she was. He had 50 pounds on her. He was standing close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath. "My name is Lennox," she said. "Lennox what?" "Lennox is fine." "Lennox what?" "I'm going to walk around you now, Sergeant Ducker. If you put a hand on me, I'm going to put you on the ground in front of your Marines, and you will spend the rest of your career explaining to people why a civilian woman laid you out on a public range in Oceanside. I do not want to do that. I came here to shoot my rifle and go home. Please step aside." She said all of it very quietly. She said all of it without raising her voice. She said all of it with her hands full with a rifle case in one and an ammunition box in the other, and every single person on the range heard every word. Ducker did not step aside. He did something worse. He reached out and grabbed the top handle of her rifle case. "Where'd you serve?" he said. Lennox let go of the case. She let go of it so fast and so deliberately that for a split second, Ducker found himself holding a 40-pound case with one hand, while his center of gravity was still pitched forward, and before he could correct, Lennox had stepped inside his reach, and her open palm was resting very lightly on the center of his chest. She did not push. She just let her hand sit there. "Let go of my case," she said. Ducker let go of her case. The case hit the concrete with a heavy clack. Lennox did not flinch. Her palm stayed on his chest. Her eyes stayed on his. "I don't know what you thought was going to happen today," she said. "I don't know what your morning was supposed to look like. But I am telling you as a favor to a man who does not know he needs one to walk back to your truck and get in it and leave. Because the longer you stand here, the more people are going to remember your face. And there are going to be questions. And some of those questions are going to be asked by people you work for. Do you understand me, Sergeant?" Ducker's eyes had changed. Something in them had changed the moment her hand touched his chest. It was not that she was strong. She was not strong the way he was strong. He could have picked her up with one arm and thrown her. What had changed in his eyes was the realization, slow and cold and dawning, that she was not afraid of him. She was not afraid. Not a little bit at all, not 1%. And in his career, Michael Ducker had stood across from a lot of people. Recruits who were terrified of him, corporals who were wary of him, his own wife who was cautious of him, civilians who gave him space without knowing why. He had built his whole adult life on the feeling of being the scariest person in the room. He was not the scariest person in the room. He had not been the scariest person in the room from the moment she loaded her first magazine, and he was just now figuring it out. He stepped back. He stepped back so fast that he almost tripped on his own heel. Lennox bent down. She picked up her rifle case. She picked up her ammunition box. She walked past him. She walked past Hollis. She walked past the civilians and the UCSD students and the retired patrolman who, as she passed, tipped his hat to her an inch without saying a word. She walked into the parking lot. She did not look back. Ducker stood there with his hands hanging at his sides. Ray was the first to speak. Ray had not moved from the bench where the $200 bills were sitting untouched in a small pile. "Sergeant," Ray said, "I'm going to ask you to leave my range, and I'm going to ask you not to come back." "Ray, come on." "I'm going to ask you to leave my range, Sergeant, and I'm going to ask you not to come back. Your corporals are welcome anytime. You are not." Ducker opened his mouth. "Don't," Ray said. "Just go." Hollis took Ducker's elbow. Hollis, to his credit, was gentle about it. Hollis was a good Marine. Hollis had joined the Corps because his uncle had been a Marine, and his uncle had told him that being a Marine was about keeping your head down and doing the work and showing up for people. Hollis knew in that moment that his sergeant had just shown the worst version of himself to a woman who did not deserve it, and Hollis wanted desperately to get his sergeant out of the parking lot before the sergeant did anything else. "Come on, Sergeant, let's go." Ducker let himself be led away. They walked toward the parking lot. Ducker's truck was parked 3 spaces down from Lennox's. Lennox was sliding her rifle case into the back of a black Jeep Wrangler. She had her back to them. She was not hurrying. She was moving with the same deliberate, unhurried economy of motion she had used to load her magazine. Hollis saw the sticker on the back window of her Jeep first. It was a small sticker. It was black on black. You had to be close to see it. It was the outline of a trident, a small black embroidered style trident on a black background, the kind of sticker that people who knew what it meant would recognize, and the kind of sticker that people who did not know would not even notice. Hollis stopped walking. "Sergeant." "What?" "Sergeant, look at her Jeep." Ducker looked. He saw the trident. He did not for a full 5 seconds understand what he was looking at, and then he did. "No," Ducker said quietly. "Sergeant." No, that's a friend's sticker. Her husband's, her brother's, something." "Sergeant, look at the way she's loading that Jeep." He looked. She was stowing her rifle with a specific practiced military sequence of movements that he had seen 1,000 times in his career from 1,000 Marines, but had never in his entire life seen from a woman in a red windbreaker. She closed the back of the Jeep. She walked around to the driver's side. She opened the door. Before she climbed in, she paused and looked back across the parking lot. She looked straight at Ducker. She did not wave. She did not smile. She did not frown. She just looked at him for 3 seconds with the same flat, unreadable cataloging expression she had worn when she had first turned her head in Bay 4 that morning. Then she got in her Jeep. She started the engine. She backed out. She drove away. Hollis spoke first. "Sergeant, who was that?" "I don't know." "Sergeant." "I said I don't know, Hollis." "Sergeant, that was not a civilian." Ducker did not answer. He stood in the parking lot for a long time after her taillights disappeared onto the coast road. His 4 Marines stood behind him. Nobody spoke. The wind off the Pacific picked up and pushed the empty $100 bills across the bench inside the range, and Ray walked over and weighted them down with a stapler and left them sitting there because nobody had come to collect them. Lennox drove south on Pacific Coast Highway with both hands on the wheel and her jaw very tight. She did not turn on the radio. She did not call anyone. She did not cry, although something in her chest was doing a slow, familiar thing that felt a little like crying and a little like laughing and a lot like being tired in a way that sleep did not fix. Her phone sitting in the cup holder buzzed. It was a text from a 760 number she had not saved. She glanced down at it at a red light. The message read, "This is Ray from the range. I looked up your tag number in my logbook from when you signed in. I don't know who you are and I don't need to, but the sergeant you just embarrassed is the lead marksmanship instructor for the weapons training battalion at Camp Pendleton. He is not going to let this go. If you have a friend in the service, call them tonight. Respectfully, Ray." Lennox read the message twice. She set the phone back in the cup holder. The light turned green. She drove another half mile. She pulled into a gas station. She parked. She sat in her Jeep with her hands on the wheel and her eyes on the dashboard for a full minute without moving. Then she picked up her phone. She scrolled through her contacts. She stopped on a name she had not called in 3 years and 4 months. A name she had promised herself on a cold afternoon in a VA parking lot in 2022 she would never call again. Cameron Brooks. Her thumb hovered over his name. She did not press it. Not yet. She set the phone face down on the passenger seat, and she started the Jeep, and she pulled back onto the highway, and she drove home. And as she drove, the ghost of a man she had once called her spotter sat in the passenger seat and said nothing because he did not need to. He had always known this day would come. Lennox pulled into her driveway at 11:42 on Saturday morning. She sat in her Jeep for another 4 minutes before she moved. Her house was a small 2-bedroom bungalow in Vista, painted the kind of faded blue that said the owner did not care what the neighbors thought. There was a lemon tree in the front yard. There was a mailbox with no name on it. There was a welcome mat that said nothing. She carried her rifle case inside. She locked the door behind her. She set the case on the kitchen counter. She stood there with her hands flat on the granite, and she closed her eyes. Her phone buzzed again in her pocket. She did not look at it. It buzzed a second time. Then a third. She pulled it out. 3 messages, all from Ray at the range. She read them in order. The first said, "I don't want to scare you, but he's the type who will start making phone calls." The second said, "Gee, Haston, if you were who I think you were, you still have people, call them." The third said, "And ma'am, that was the finest rifle work I have ever seen on my line. Thank you for coming out this morning." Lennox read the third one twice. She set the phone face down on the counter. She walked to her bedroom. She opened the closet. She reached up to the top shelf. There was a shoebox up there, taped shut, pushed all the way against the back wall. She pulled it down. She cut the tape with a kitchen knife. She lifted the lid. Inside the box was a photograph. She had not looked at it in 3 years. It showed 2 people in desert utilities sitting on the edge of a rooftop with their backs to the camera, a rifle laid across the lap of the one on the left. The one on the right was a bearded man with his arm around her shoulders. Neither of them was looking at the camera. They were looking at the sunset. Someone had scrawled on the back in black ink, Kunar 2019. Brooks and Herove. Last good day. Underneath the photograph there was a phone. It was an old flip phone. Cheap. Prepaid. She had bought it on the day she left the teams and had kept it charged in a drawer for 3.5 years because Cameron Brooks had told her to. "If you ever need me," he had said, "if you ever need me, Len," that phone, not the other one, that one. She picked up the flip phone. She turned it on. The battery was at 62%. She scrolled through the contacts. There was one name, Brooks. She held the phone for a long time. And then she pressed call. He answered on the second ring. "Len." His voice was older, thicker, but it was his. "Cam, where are you?" "Home. I'm home. I'm fine. I'm not hurt." "Okay. Cam, talk to me." She sat down on the edge of the bed. She had not sat down all morning, and her legs, which had held her up through 5 clean rounds, and a man 3 inches from her face chose that moment to shake. "I went to a public range this morning." "Okay. A Marine sergeant saw me. He started in on me. I tried to ignore him. He wouldn't stop." "Len." "I didn't start it." "Len, I know you didn't start it. Tell me what happened." She told him. She told him all of it. The bet, the 5 shots, the hand on her case, the hand she had put on his chest, the drive home, Ray's text, the flip phone. She told it fast in short sentences the way they used to report after a mission, because that was still the only way she knew how to tell a story when her hands were shaking. Cameron Brooks listened. He did not interrupt. He did not say a word for 6 straight minutes. When she finished, he said, "What's his name?" "Cam." "What's his name?" "Len." "Ducker, Michael Ducker, Staff Sergeant, Weapons Training Battalion, Pendleton." There was a long pause. "Okay," Brooks said. "Okay. Cam, I don't want a war. I just want it to go away. I want him to forget about it." "He's not going to forget about it." "I know. He's going to spend the rest of the weekend trying to figure out who you are. And when he figures out who you are, he is going to spend the rest of his career trying to figure out how to take you down a peg, because men like that cannot live with the version of themselves you just showed him." "I know." "Len, yeah, you did the right thing calling me." She closed her eyes. A single tear slipped down the side of her nose. She did not wipe it. She let it go. "I'm flying in tonight," Brooks said. "Cam, no. I'm flying in tonight. I'll be at your place by midnight. Don't argue with me." "Cam, don't argue with me. Okay? Lock your doors. Pull the curtains. Don't answer the door for anyone you don't know. And Len, do not go back to that range. Do not go to Pendleton. Do not go anywhere. You sit tight until I get there. Okay. I love you, Len. I'll see you tonight. He hung up before she could say it back. She sat on the edge of the bed with the flip phone in her hand, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself feel how tired she was. 60 miles south of Vista, in the parking lot of a Carl's Jr. off Interstate 5, Staff Sergeant Michael Ducker was sitting in the driver's seat of his truck, making his fourth phone call in 15 minutes. Gunny, it's Ducker. Ducker, it's Saturday. I need a favor. No. Gunny. I said no, Ducker. I know that tone. I know what that tone means. Whatever you did, fix it yourself. Gunny, I just need you to run a plate. I'm hanging up. Black Jeep Wrangler, California. 7 Charlie Victor 90421. Please, Gunny. There was a long silence. Gunnery Sergeant Ramon Valdez was 48 years old, had 26 years in the Corps, and had, on exactly 3 occasions in his career, pulled Staff Sergeant Michael Ducker out of disciplinary trouble that Ducker had created for himself. He was not planning on making it a 4th time. Ducker. Yes, Gunny. Who is she? I don't know. That's why I'm calling. What did you do? I didn't do anything. Michael. Ducker closed his eyes. I challenged her to a shooting contest at the range in Oceanside this morning. And she won. How badly? Gunny. How badly? Ducker. 5 shots, same hole, 100 yards, cold bore. Valdez did not speak for a long moment. Ducker. Yes, Gunny. You challenged a stranger to a shooting contest at a public range in front of your Marines without knowing who she was first. Yes, Gunny. And she put 5 rounds through the same hole at 100 yards. Yes, Gunny. Cold bore. Yes. Another long silence. Son, Valdez said, you have made a series of very bad decisions this morning. I know, Gunny. Do you understand how bad? I think I'm starting to. No, you are not starting to. You think this is about your pride. This is not about your pride. This is about the fact that there are maybe 40 people in the entire United States who can do what you just watched that woman do, and most of them are on government payroll or buried in Arlington. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Yes, Gunny. I will run the plate on Monday, not before. And when I run it, I am going to do it quietly, and I am going to call you with the result, and you are going to do whatever I tell you to do with it. Is that understood? Gunny, I can't wait till Monday. Yes, you can. She humiliated me in front of my Marines. Ducker, listen to me very carefully. She did not humiliate you. You humiliated yourself. And if you keep pulling at this thread, you are going to find out that the woman on the other end of it is someone whose name you are not cleared to know. Do you understand me? Gunny? Do you understand me, Staff Sergeant? Yes, Gunny. Go home, drink a beer, kiss your wife. Forget the morning happened. I will call you Monday. Valdez hung up. Ducker sat in the Carl's Jr. parking lot with his phone in his lap and his forehead against the top of the steering wheel. Then he picked up his phone again. He opened Facebook. He opened Instagram. He opened a website he used sometimes for finding people. He typed in the name Lennox. He started scrolling. He had at that moment a choice. He could have listened to Ramon Valdez. He could have gone home. He could have kissed his wife. He could have let it go. He did not. Back in Vista, Lennox had spent the afternoon doing the things you do when a Marine sergeant has your license plate and an old friend is flying in at midnight. She checked the locks on her doors twice. She pulled the curtains in the front rooms. She ate half of a sandwich standing at the kitchen sink. She did not turn on the television. At 4:15, her phone buzzed. Not the flip phone, her regular phone. The number was not saved. She looked at it for a long moment before she answered. Hello. Is this Lennox Harrove? A woman's voice, middle-aged, professional. Who's asking? My name is Captain Marisol Reyes. I'm with Naval Special Warfare Group at One Public Affairs. Ma'am, I'm calling on a secure line. I need to confirm that you are Senior Chief Petty Officer Lennox Harrove, United States Navy, retired. Lennox sat down slowly on the arm of her couch. Ma'am, are you there? I'm here. Can you confirm your identity for me, ma'am? Yes, I'm Lennox Harrove. Thank you, ma'am. I need to inform you that at approximately 1:30 this afternoon, a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps contacted a civilian background check service and began querying your name along with partial biographical information, including the approximate year he believed you served and a physical description. The service in question maintains a flag on your name per your request in 2022. The query triggered that flag. I'm calling as a courtesy. Captain. Yes, ma'am. I know who he is. His name is Michael Ducker. He's at W.T. Pendleton. That's consistent with what we have, ma'am. Does he know anything yet? He has your first name. He has a partial physical description. He has an approximate age. He does not have your service record. He does not have your MOS. He does not have your deployments. The flag on your name keeps the sensitive material sealed. Thank you. Ma'am, I want to be clear with you about something. Okay, the Navy is not going to get involved in this. We cannot. You are retired. You are a civilian. This is a civilian matter between you and a Marine who behaved unprofessionally at a public range. However, if Staff Sergeant Ducker continues to pursue this, and if the pursuit escalates in a way that endangers you, I am authorized to tell you that there are people at this command who remember you and who would consider it a personal matter to make a phone call to a Marine colonel they happen to know at Pendleton. Do you understand me, Senior Chief? Lennox closed her eyes. Thank you, Captain. Is Sergeant Brooks aware? He's on his way. Good, that's good. Senior Chief, one more thing. Yes. Ma'am, on behalf of a group of people who are not allowed to say it officially. Welcome back. The line clicked off. Lennox sat on the arm of her couch with her phone in her hand, and for the second time that day, she felt tears come up into her eyes, and she did not fight them. At 5:07, Ducker's truck rolled past her street. He did not stop. He did not slow down. He did not turn. He drove past the end of her block, made a left, and disappeared. But Lennox, sitting at her kitchen table with the blinds pulled down to a 2-inch gap, saw him. She saw his truck. She saw his profile in the driver's seat. She saw him look at the street sign as he passed it. She saw him commit it to memory. She picked up her regular phone. She opened her contacts. She scrolled to the name of a private investigator who had helped her once 3 years ago with a different problem she did not talk about. She stopped at his name. She stared at it. Then she put the phone down. She walked back to her bedroom. She opened her closet. She pulled out a black duffel bag from the bottom shelf. She unzipped it. Inside the bag was a Sig Sauer P320 holstered, 2 magazines, a box of ammunition, a first aid kit that was bigger than a lunchbox, a pair of night vision goggles in a hard case, a small, battered notebook with a leather cover. She had not unzipped this bag in 3 years. She lifted the pistol out. She checked the action. She checked the magazine. She loaded it. She set it on the bed. Then she sat down next to it and waited for Cameron Brooks to land. He knocked on her door at 11:53 that night. She saw him through the peephole before she opened it. He had a salt and pepper beard now. He had put on about 15 pounds. He was wearing a canvas jacket and jeans and boots, and he was holding a coffee in one hand and a small black bag in the other. She opened the door. Brooks looked at her for a long moment and said, "Hey, Len." "Hey, Cam." He stepped inside. She closed the door and locked it. He set the coffee on the counter. He set the bag on the floor. He turned around and he opened his arms, and she walked into them without a word, and she cried into the front of his canvas jacket for almost 2 full minutes. He did not say anything. He did not pat her back. He did not shush her. He just held her the way a man holds a friend who has been holding too much alone for too long. When she was done, she stepped back. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. "You look like hell," she said. "You look worse." "I don't." "You do, Len." She laughed. It was a broken laugh, but it was a laugh. They sat at her kitchen table. She made him coffee. He did not drink the one he had brought. He asked her to walk him through the morning again, slower this time, with the details she had left out the first time. She did. When she got to the part about Ducker driving past her house, Brooks put his coffee down. "Len, I saw him, Cam. I saw him look at the sign." "How did he get your address?" "I don't know." "Len." "I don't know, Cam. He ran my plate. He had to. He must have called somebody." Brooks pulled out his own phone. He made a call. He walked into her living room. He spoke for 2 minutes in a low voice she could not quite hear. He came back. Okay, he said. I have a guy. I'll have a name on whoever ran that plate by Monday morning. If it's a Marine and if it was done off the books, that Marine is going to have a bad Monday. Cam. What? Don't burn anybody's career over this. Len, he came to your house. He drove past my street. He came to your house, Len. That's the same thing. You know it's the same thing. She did not answer. Brooks leaned forward. Listen to me, he said. You spent 3.5 years trying to be smaller than you are. You moved here, you took a quiet job. You took the sticker off your truck. You stopped going to the VA. You stopped answering our calls. You tried to disappear. And I let you. I let you because I thought it was what you needed. I thought if I gave you enough time, you'd come back around. But you didn't come back around. You just kept getting smaller. Cam. And this morning, a Marine who doesn't know anything about anything decided to treat you like a joke. And the first thing you did, the very first thing, was try to ignore him. Try to let it go. Try to make yourself even smaller so it would go away. Cam, I don't want to talk about this. I know you don't. I'm going to talk about it anyway. Because you are the best shooter I have ever worked with. You are the best shooter I have ever heard of. And you have been sitting in this house in Vista, California for 3.5 years, pretending you are somebody smaller than you are. And this morning, a man who could not carry your gear tried to push you off a range because you let the world convince you that he had the right to. That's not fair. It's fair, Len. It's fair and you know it. She stared at her coffee cup. He ran your plate, Brooks said quietly. He drove past your house. He is not done. And tomorrow is Sunday, and Monday morning, he is going to walk into his shop at Pendleton, and he is going to spend the whole day trying to figure out who you are. And he is going to find out, because there are people on that base who remember you, and at least one of them is going to see your name on his desk and react the wrong way, and it is going to get back to him. And when it gets back to him, you are going to have 2 choices. What are the 2 choices? You can keep sitting in this house, or you can walk into the weapons training battalion at Camp Pendleton on Monday morning with me, and you can look Staff Sergeant Michael Bucker in the face on his own deck, and you can let him find out who you are from you instead of from a file. Lennox looked up. That's not 2 choices, Cam. That's 1 choice and 1 thing I'm too tired to do. Maybe, but I'm asking you to think about it. Cam, I'm not telling you, I'm asking. You think about it tonight. And if you say no in the morning, I will get on a plane and I will go home and we will never talk about it again. But I am asking you to think about it, Len, because I do not want to sit in another VA parking lot 3 years from now, wishing we had done it differently. She did not answer him. She stood up. She walked to the window. She lifted the corner of the curtain by 1 inch and she looked out at the empty street, and she stood there for a long time with her back to him. And Cameron Brooks did not say another word, because he had been her spotter for 7 years, and he knew when to talk and he knew when to shut up. At 12:41, her regular phone buzzed on the kitchen table. Brooks picked it up. He looked at the screen. His jaw tightened. Len? What? It's a 760 number. She walked over. She took the phone. She looked at the screen. The message was 3 words long. I know now. Lennox stared at the 3 words on her phone. She did not move. She did not blink. Brooks reached over and gently took the phone out of her hand. I know now. He read it twice. He set the phone face down on the table. Okay, he said. Okay, Len, come sit down. Cam, come sit down. She sat. Her hands were on the table. Her hands were steady. Her hands had been steady through 5 rounds at 100 yards, and they were steady now. But something behind her eyes was not steady, and Brooks saw it. Breathe, he said. She breathed. Again, she breathed. He's trying to scare you, Brooks said. That's all that message is. He found out who you are, and the first thing he did was try to scare you with it. He didn't call you. He didn't knock on your door. He sent a text. From a burner. That's not a man making a move. That's a man throwing a rock. He knows where I live, Cam. I know. He knows my name. He knows my rank. He knows. I know Len. She stood up. She walked to the sink. She turned on the faucet. She splashed cold water on her face. She stayed there with her hands on the edge of the sink and her head down for almost a minute. When she turned around, her face was different. Brooks saw the change. He had seen it before. He had seen it on a rooftop in Kanar, on a hillside in Helmand, in a dirty alley outside of Mosul. He had seen the exact moment when Senior Chief Lennox Harov stopped being a person and started being the instrument the Navy had trained her to be. "I'm going with you," she said. "Going where?" "Pendleton, Monday. I'm going with you." "Len, you were right. I've been small for too long. I'm done being small. I'm going to walk onto that base Monday morning, and I'm going to look Michael Ducker in the face, and I'm going to let him find out exactly who he spent his Saturday trying to humiliate. And then I'm going to walk out and go home and never think about him again." "That's the plan. That's the plan." "Okay," Brooks said. "Okay, then we need to talk about Monday." They talked until 3 in the morning. Brooks slept on her couch. He did not take off his boots. He kept his pistol on the coffee table within arm's reach. He did not sleep deeply. He had not slept deeply in 10 years. At 6:30 Sunday morning, Lennox was up. She made coffee. She made eggs. She ate standing at the counter. She did not turn on the television. She did not look at her phone. She did not open the curtains. Brooks came into the kitchen at 7. He looked at her. He looked at the eggs on the plate waiting for him. "You made me breakfast. Don't make it weird." "I'm making it weird. Eat your eggs, Cam." He sat down. He ate. She watched him eat. She had watched him eat 1,000 times out of MRE pouches and in dusty mess halls and in diners off of Highway 1. And for a moment, sitting in her kitchen in Vista, she felt a wave of something that was not quite grief and not quite relief, but something in between. "I missed you, Cam." He looked up. "I missed you too, Len. I'm sorry I stopped answering." "I know. Len, you don't have to. I know. I want to say it." "Okay." "I stopped answering because every time you called, I was back there, every time. I'd see your name and I'd be back on that roof in Kunar and I'd hear the radio and I'd feel the heat and I'd smell everything and I couldn't do it. I couldn't hear your voice and not be there, so I stopped answering." Brooks put his fork down. "Len, I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize." I do have to, Cam, because I left you alone too. And I know what that cost you. I know what the nightmares are like. I know you don't have anybody else who was there. And I left you alone with all of it. And that wasn't fair." Brooks did not answer for a long time. Then he said, "We're here now." "Yeah, that's what matters. We're here now." She reached across the table. She put her hand on his. He turned his hand over and held hers. They sat like that in a small kitchen in Vista, California on a Sunday morning for almost a full minute, saying nothing. At 7:42, Brooks's phone rang. He looked at it. He answered. "Talk to me." He listened for a long time. He made a small humming sound. He asked one question. He listened again. He said, "Thanks, I owe you." He hung up. Lennox was already looking at him. "Who?" "Gunny named Ramon Valdez, Ducker Sr. He's the one who ran your plate." "When?" "Yesterday afternoon, around 2, against his better judgment. He told Ducker he'd wait until Monday and do it quietly." Ducker did not wait. Ducker went somewhere else. My guy says Ducker paid a civilian contact, probably a retired cop, $200 cash to run the plate off the books yesterday evening. That's how he had your address by 5. "Okay. But what?" "But Gunny Valdez called my guy this morning. He found out what Ducker did. And Gunny Valdez is, quote, going to walk into the weapons training battalion Monday morning ahead of Ducker and have a conversation with the CO before Ducker gets there." That's a direct quote. Lennox let out a breath she had not known she was holding. "So we have an ally. We have a professional. He's not an ally. He's a man who is tired of cleaning up Ducker's messes and has decided that this mess is the one that ends Ducker's career." "Okay. Len, this changes the plan." "How?" "If we show up at WTB Monday morning, and Ducker has already been pulled into the CO's office before we arrive, we are walking into the middle of a disciplinary action we are not part of. That is a bad place for us to be. You don't want to be on that base on the day they are breaking that man. You want to be on that base of the day after. So what do? We move it up. To when? Tonight." Lennox set her coffee down. "Cam, it's Sunday. It's Sunday evening. Duty hours are over. Most of the base is either off-duty or on standby. Ducker is not at his shop. Ducker is at home in base housing trying to figure out what he's going to say tomorrow. And I have a contact at the Marine Corps Provost Marshal's office who can meet us at the main gate at 6 p.m. and escort us to the front door of Ducker's quarters. You want to confront him at his house. I want you to confront him at his house, on base, with a Provost Marshal's officer standing next to us so there are no questions about what happened, and so Ducker cannot claim he was threatened, and so every word of the conversation is on the record. His wife lives there. I know. His kids live there. I know. I'm not asking you to make a scene. I'm asking you to knock on his door. I'm asking you to wait until he opens it. I'm asking you to introduce yourself to him by name and rank in front of a witness. And then I'm asking you to leave. That's it. That's it. Lennox thought about it. She thought about it for a long time. Okay, she said. At 8:15, her regular phone buzzed again. She picked it up. She looked at the screen. She handed it to Brooks. It was not a number she knew. The message was one line long. Senior Chief, this is Ray from the range. A gentleman came by this morning asking about you. Silver hair, mid-50s, Marine Corps, bearing civilian clothes. I told him nothing. He asked if I would tell you that Gunnery Sergeant Valdez would very much like to speak with you before you do anything you cannot take back. He gave me a number. He said you can call him anytime today on a cell and he will pick up. Below that was a phone number. Brooks looked at Lennox. Lennox looked at Brooks. What do you want to do? Brooks said. I want to call him. Len. Cam, if a Marine gunny drove to that range on a Sunday morning to talk to me, he is not a man who is working for Ducker. He is a man who is trying to stop something from happening. Or he's trying to talk you off the base before you get there. Maybe, but if he is, I want to hear him say it. Brooks nodded once. Put him on speaker. She dialed. He answered it on the first ring. Valdez. Gunny, this is Lennox Harrow. There was a pause. Senior Chief, thank you for calling. Yes, Gunny. Ma'am, I want to be brief and I want to be honest. Staff Sergeant Michael Ducker is my Marine. He has been my Marine for 4 years. He is a good shooter, and on a good day, he is a good instructor, but he has a bad habit of making decisions on Saturday mornings that he has to apologize for on Monday mornings, and I have up to this point in his career covered for him 3 times too many. Yes, Gunny. What he did to you yesterday is not something I can cover for. What he did to you yesterday is not something I want to cover for. I have spent the better part of the last 24 hours at my kitchen table deciding what to do about it. I am calling you because I have decided. Okay, ma'am, Monday morning I am going to walk into the battalion commander's office at 0700. I am going to lay out what happened on that range, and I am going to recommend that Staff Sergeant Ducker be relieved of his duties as an instructor, that he be reassigned to a non-instructional position, and that he complete a full remedial course on professional conduct before he is permitted near another student. Brooks' eyebrows went up. That's a career ender, Gunny. It is, ma'am, for him, as an instructor, which is the part of his career that matters to him. Yes, ma'am. Why are you telling me this? Because I need to ask you something, Senior Chief, and I want to ask it before you do anything else. Ask. Are you going to press charges? Lennox looked at Brooks. Brooks was watching her. Gunny, he put his hand on me. He grabbed the handle of my rifle case while I was holding it. He attempted to impede my movement. He drove past my home yesterday evening. He obtained my address through an illegal means. And 40 minutes ago, he sent me an anonymous text from a burner phone with the words, I know now. Silence on the line. I was not aware of the text, ma'am, or the drive-by. Well, Senior Chief, I apologize. On behalf of my Marine, on behalf of my battalion, on behalf of the Corps. Those are 3 apologies I am not authorized to give, and I am giving them anyway because they are owed. Gunny, I am not going to press charges. Brooks' head came up sharply. Ma'am, I'm going to press charges, Gunny. I am going to do one thing. I am going to come to Camp Pendleton this evening at 1800 with Sergeant Cameron Brooks, United States Navy retired, and with a Provost Marshal's officer as a witness, and I am going to knock on Staff Sergeant Ducker's door, and I am going to introduce myself to him, by name, by rank, by record. And then I am going to leave, and I am never going to think about him again. And you, Gunny Valdez, are going to do what you were already going to do on Monday morning, and I am going to trust you to do it because you have already earned that trust in the way you have handled this conversation. Another long silence. Ma'am, permission to be frank. Always Gunny. That is more restraint than my Marine deserves. I know it is. Why? Because I am not the woman I was at 26 Gunny. I am a 50-year-old civilian who came home from 2 wars with a quiet life and a garden and a flip phone. And I want to keep the quiet life. I do not want to spend the next 2 years in federal court explaining to 12 jurors what a sniper is. And I do not want your Marine to spend the next 2 years telling people he was taken down by a woman, because he will tell that story and it will grow and it will become the only story he tells at every bar he ever walks into. I want him to spend the next 2 years quietly doing whatever job you assign him, and I want him to tell no stories at all. Do you understand me? I understand you, Senior Chief. Good. Ma'am. Yes, Gunny. I will be at the main gate at 1800. I will sign you in myself. I will walk you to his quarters. I will stand at the bottom of his steps while you knock on his door. I will be your witness. Ma'am. Thank you, Gunny. Ma'am, one more thing. Yes. My wife and I have a daughter. She is 14. She wants to be a Marine. She is going to be a Marine. And if she had been at that range yesterday and my daughter had been the one in the red jacket and Staff Sergeant Ducker had done to her what he did to you, I do not know that I would be capable of the restraint you are showing this morning. I want you to know that I see it, and I want you to know that I will not forget it. Thank you, Gunny. 1800 Senior Chief, main gate, I'll be the one with the silver hair. He hung up. Brooks let out a long breath. Len, what? You just did something very hard. I know. I don't know if I could have done it. Yes, you could, Cam. You just would have needed a second. He laughed. It was the first time he had laughed in a day and a half. They spent the rest of Sunday in her house. Lennox made sandwiches. Brooks called his wife and told her he would be home Tuesday. Lennox took a long shower. Brooks cleaned both of their pistols at her kitchen table out of habit not need. They did not talk about Kunar. They did not talk about Mosul. They did not talk about the 3 operators they had both known who were not there to have Sunday lunch with them. At 4:15, Lennox went into her bedroom and put on clean clothes. She put on a pair of dark jeans and a plain black long-sleeve shirt and black boots. She pulled her hair back. She did not put on makeup. She did not wear jewelry. She clipped her Sig Sauer to her belt under the shirt because California is a concealed carry state, and because she had a permit, and because after everything that had happened in the last 31 hours, she was not walking onto a military base without a sidearm. She came out of the bedroom. Brooks looked at her. You look like you. Is that good? It's good, Len. At 5:07, they got in her Jeep. Brooks drove. Lennox sat in the passenger seat with her hands flat on her thighs and her eyes forward. They did not speak for the first 20 minutes. When they got onto Interstate 5 heading south, Brooks said, Len, yeah, if he opens that door and he tries to start something, he won't. If he does. Cam, if he does, Len, you step back. You let me and the provost officer handle it. You do not put a hand on that man under any circumstance, no matter what he says, no matter what he does. You do not touch him. You understand? I understand. Say it. I will not touch him. Good. Cam. What? Thank you for coming. I'd do it again tomorrow. I know. At 5:51, they pulled into the visitor lot at the main gate of Camp Pendleton. Gunnery Sergeant Ramon Valdez was standing by the guard shack. He was in civilian clothes. He had silver hair cropped short. He had the kind of posture that said Marine even in a polo shirt. A provost marshal's officer, a corporal named Estrada, was standing next to him in uniform. Valdez walked over to the Jeep. Lennox rolled down her window. Senior Chief? Gunny. Ma'am, before we go in, I need to tell you something. Okay. Staff Sergeant Ducker is not at his quarters. Lennox's jaw tightened. Where is he? He checked himself into the Camp Pendleton Medical Clinic at 15:30 this afternoon, ma'am. Voluntarily, for a psychiatric evaluation. Brooks leaned across the passenger seat. Say that again, Gunny. Staff Sergeant Ducker walked into the medical clinic this afternoon and told the duty officer that he was having intrusive thoughts and that he needed to be evaluated. He was placed on a 72-hour hold for his own safety. Lennox stared at him. Is it real, Gunny? Valdez met her eyes. Ma'am, I have known Michael Ducker for 4 years. I believe it is real. I also believe he knows that if he is on a 72-hour medical hold, no one can touch him, no one can discipline him, no one can question him, and no one can serve him with anything until he is cleared. I believe both things are true at the same time. Lennox closed her eyes. So he ran. He ran into a place he can hide for 3 days, ma'am. Yes. Brooks swore under his breath. He put both hands on the steering wheel. He looked at Lennox. What do you want to do, Len? She opened her eyes. She looked through the windshield at the main gate of Camp Pendleton. She looked at Valdez. She looked at Brooks. And then very slowly, a small, tired, almost amused smile began to form at the corner of her mouth. Gunny. Ma'am, what time does the Weapons Training Battalion open for training Monday morning? 0600, ma'am. And what time does Staff Sergeant Ducker's 72-hour hold end? Valdez did the math in his head. Wednesday afternoon, ma'am, 15:30. And where is he expected to report when he is released? Back to his shop, ma'am, to begin the out-processing that I will have already started against him. He will report to the battalion commander first, then to Musselman, and then, ma'am, based on what I intend to recommend, he will be assigned to a non-instructional position pending a full review. Where Gunny, Valdez's jaw moved. A very small muscle at the corner of his mouth twitched in what a less careful observer might have mistaken for a smile. Range safety, ma'am. The pistol range at Edson. Running targets, walking the line, checking ear protection, supervising new shooters. Lennox was quiet for a long moment. Gunny. Ma'am, I would like to make a request, one Marine to another. Go ahead, ma'am. When Staff Sergeant Ducker reports to his new position on Thursday morning, I would like to be at that range. Not as a shooter, not as a complainant, as a visitor, as a guest of your command. I would like to sit in the gallery and watch him do his new job for 1 hour. And then I would like to walk up to him at the end of that hour and introduce myself. By name, by rank, by record. In front of whoever happens to be there. And then I would like to go home and never come back, and never think about him again. Valdez looked at her for a long time. Senior Chief? Yes, Gunny. I will make that happen. Thank you, Gunny. Ma'am, one more question. Yes. When you introduce yourself to him on my range on Thursday, yes. Would you be willing to do it in uniform? Lennox's breath caught. Brooks's head turned sharply toward her. Valdez kept his eyes on her face. Ma'am, you are retired. You are entitled to wear your service dress blues on official occasions. I am inviting you to an official occasion, on my range, on Thursday. I believe that Staff Sergeant Ducker would benefit in the long term from seeing one time in his entire career what the woman he called sweetheart actually looked like in the uniform she earned. Lennox did not answer for a long time. She looked out the windshield at the main gate of Camp Pendleton. She looked at the flag flying over the guard shack. She looked down at her own hands in her lap, and she turned them over palm up, and she looked at the small, pale scar on her right wrist that she had gotten in a place she was not allowed to talk about from a man whose name she had never been told on a night that she still dreamed about more often than she wanted to admit. And then she looked up at Gunnery Sergeant Ramon Valdez and said one word. Yes. Brooks drove her home Sunday night in silence. Lennox did not speak for the first 30 miles. She sat with her hands flat on her thighs, and she watched the taillights of the cars on the interstate the way she used to watch the flares over Cunarwa when they were waiting out a storm. At the State Road off-ramp, she finally said, in uniform, Cam, I know. I haven't put it on in 3.5 years. I know, Len. What if it doesn't fit? It'll fit. What if I can't do it? What if I put it on and I can't walk out the door in it? Brooks looked at her across the cab of the Jeep. Then we don't go, he said. Then we stay home and we eat leftovers and we call Gunny Valdez and we tell him we changed our mind. And that is the end of it. You'd let me. Len, I'd let you do anything. I am not here to push you. I am here to stand next to you. If you decide Thursday morning that you cannot do it, we do not do it. She looked back out of the windshield. Cam, yeah, I'm going to do it. Okay. I am going to put on my uniform Thursday morning and I am going to walk onto that range and I am going to look that man in the face and I am going to tell him my name. And I don't care if my hands are shaking the whole way there. I am going to do it. Okay, Lynn. Monday, she drove to the storage unit in Escondido where she had put everything she could not look at in 2022. Brooks waited in the parking lot. She had asked him to. He understood. She walked inside alone. She unlocked the unit. She flipped on the overhead bulb. She stood in the doorway for a full minute before she stepped in. Her service dress blues were in a garment bag, in a plastic storage bin, under a folded American flag in a triangular wooden case. The flag had been given to her at a ceremony in 2021 that she had not wanted to attend. She had never opened the bin. She opened it now. She pulled out the garment bag. She unzipped it. The jacket was wrinkled in one place along the left sleeve. The shirt was yellowed at the collar. The ribbons were in a small velvet box taped to the inside of the bag. The shoes were wrapped in tissue paper at the bottom. She stood in the storage unit and she looked at her uniform, and she did not cry. She was past crying. She was somewhere quieter than crying. She drove home. Brooks made her dinner. She hung the jacket on the back of her bedroom door. She went to bed at 9. She slept 4 hours. Tuesday, she took the jacket to a dry cleaner in Oceanside who had done work for active duty Marines for 31 years. The woman who owned the shop took one look at the jacket and said, "Ma'am, I will have this back to you by noon tomorrow, and there will be no charge, and I do not want to hear an argument about it." Lennox did not argue. Wednesday afternoon, she polished her shoes at the kitchen table while Brooks drank coffee across from her. She did not speak. He did not speak. There was a rhythm to the polishing that was old, and the old rhythm needed quiet around it. At 4, her regular phone buzzed, a text from a number she had saved the day before. Valdez. "Ma'am, he was released from the hold at 15:30. He was informed at 1600 by his battalion commander of his reassignment. He was informed at 16:15 that he will be working the pistol range at Edson starting tomorrow at 0800. He took it without a word. He asked if he could see his wife. He was told he could. He left. He is currently at his quarters. He does not know you will be there in the morning. Respectfully, Valdez." Lennox read it twice. She set the phone down. "Cam?" "Yeah." "What am I doing, Cam?" Brooks set his coffee down. He leaned forward across the table. He looked at her the way he had looked at her the night before a bad job in a bad province in a bad year. He did not say anything right away. He just looked at her. "Len?" "Yeah." "You are going onto a Marine Corps base tomorrow morning in the uniform of the United States Navy to tell a man who treated you like nothing on Saturday morning that you are not nothing. That's all. That is the whole thing. You are not hurting him. You are not humiliating him. You are not destroying his career. He did all of that to himself. You are just showing up, and you are just telling him your name, and you are just letting him live with the knowledge of it for the rest of his life. That's what you are doing. Is that enough, Cam?" "It is more than enough." "Wait, Mamai, because you are not doing it for him, Len. You are doing it for you. You are doing it because the woman you were spent her whole career serving this country, and she deserves to wear her uniform in public one more time, in a place where somebody once tried to take her size from her so that she can walk out of that place wearing her own size again. That is why you are doing it, and that is why it is enough." She looked at him for a long time. "I missed you, Cam." "You said that already." "I know, I'm saying it again." Thursday morning, she was up at 4:30. She stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom in nothing but a robe, and she looked at herself for a long time. She looked at the scar on her wrist. She looked at the small, pale mark near her collarbone that was from a fragment in 2016 that she had never told her mother about. She looked at the gray at her temples, which had come in fast after 2020 and had not gone away. She looked at her own eyes, which she had been trying not to look at for 3.5 years. She looked at her eyes and she said out loud, "Good morning, Senior Chief." Then she got dressed. She put on the uniform. It fit. It fit like it had never been off. At 6:15, Brooks knocked on her bedroom door. "Len, you ready?" She opened the door. He was in civilian clothes, a dark sport coat, a collared shirt, pressed pants, dress shoes. He had shaved. He looked younger than he had looked on Saturday night. He saw her in the uniform and his face did something he was not ready for it to do. He turned his head. He cleared his throat. He looked back. "Len, don't, Cam." "Okay. Let's just go." "Okay." They did not speak on the drive. They did not need to. Valdez was at the main gate at 7:15 in full-service uniform, standing next to a Marine Corps staff car. He was not alone. There was a Marine colonel with him, a woman, silver hair pulled back, a chest full of ribbons. Her name tape read Okafor. Lennox got out of the Jeep. Colonel Okafor came to attention. Lennox came to attention. They held it for one full second. Then the colonel stepped forward and offered her hand. Senior Chief Harrow. Colonel. Ma'am, I am the battalion commander for the Weapons Training Battalion. I want to thank you personally for the manner in which you have handled this matter, and I want to apologize on behalf of my command for the actions of one of my Marines. Colonel, that's not necessary. It is necessary, Senior Chief. It is necessary to me. I would like you to accept it. Lennox looked at her for a long moment. I accept it, Colonel. Thank you, ma'am. Now, Gunny Valdez has informed me of the arrangements for this morning. I will be present at the range. I will be in the gallery. I will not interfere. This is your moment, Senior Chief. The Marine Corps is the guest. Are we clear? We are clear, Colonel. Then shall we? They drove to the range. Brooks followed in the Jeep. The gate guards saluted the staff car. Lennox sat in the back seat with her hands folded in her lap, and she did not look out the window because she did not want to see the base, because she did not want to think about the last time she had been on it. At 7:56, the staff car pulled up to the pistol range at Edson. There were 4 Marines on the line already setting up targets. There were 2 more in the gallery checking paperwork. There was a small, square, cinder block range house with a gray roof, and there, standing in front of the range house in utility uniform, with his hands at his sides, was Staff Sergeant Michael Ducker. He did not see her. He was looking down at a clipboard. He was checking a roster. He was doing his new job, which was the job of running targets for shooters who did not know his name on a Thursday morning, 4 days after he had called a stranger sweetheart on a public range and told her she would miss. The staff car stopped. Colonel Okafor got out. Valdez got out. Lennox got out. Brooks pulled up behind them. He got out. He came around the Jeep. He stood next to the passenger door, and he did not move any closer because this was not his moment. Ducker heard the doors close. He looked up. He saw the colonel first. He came to attention. He saluted. His arm was sharp. His face was blank. Then he saw Valdez. Then he saw Lennox. And the blank face broke. It did not break all at once. It broke in pieces. His eyes went first, then his mouth, then his shoulders. He stood there with his hands still at his brow and in a held salute because the colonel had not returned it yet, and he could not lower his arm, and his face was doing things he could not stop it from doing. Colonel Okafor returned the salute slowly, deliberately. Staff Sergeant. Yes, ma'am. At ease. He went to parade rest. Staff Sergeant. Senior Chief Harrow of United States Navy retired is here this morning as a guest of my command. She has some remarks for you. You will stand at parade rest. You will listen. You will not speak unless she asks you a direct question. Is that understood? Yes, ma'am. Senior Chief. Colonel Okafor stepped back. Lennox stepped forward. She stopped 6 feet from Michael Ducker. She looked at him. She did not speak for a long moment. She let the silence sit. She let the wind move her collar tabs. She let him look at her uniform. She let him see the ribbons on her chest, the ones he had not known about on Saturday, the ones he had joked about on Saturday, the ones he had waved away with a hand on his way to calling her Barbie. She let him count them. She watched his eyes count them, and then she spoke. Staff Sergeant Ducker. Senior Chief. My name is Lennox Marie Harrow. I enlisted in the United States Navy in 1994 at the age of 18 in Chicago, Illinois, against the wishes of my mother. I was a corpsman for 6 years. In 2000, I applied for a program that did not officially exist, and I was accepted into a program that did not officially exist, and I became a member of a community that did not officially exist until 2016. I served in that community for 19 years. I deployed 11 times. I was wounded on 3 of those deployments. I was decorated on 7 of them. I retired at the rank of Senior Chief Petty Officer in 2022. I am authorized by name on orders signed by the Chief of Naval Operations to wear this uniform on official occasions for the remainder of my life. Do you understand what I am telling you, Staff Sergeant? Yes, Senior Chief. I do not think you do. Ma'am. Do not speak, Staff Sergeant. I am not done. Ma'am. Ducker's eyes were red. Lennox took one step closer. On Saturday morning, you told me I would miss. You told me to go home before I embarrassed myself. You grabbed the rifle out of my hands. You shoved me. You kicked my ammunition box. You spat near my boot. You called me Barbie. You called me sweetheart. You called me a photo op. You told your corporals in my hearing that my father had bought me my rifle for my birthday. You ran my license plate. You drove past my home. You sent me a text message at 12:41 a.m. on Sunday morning from a burner phone that said, "I know now." Is that an accurate accounting of your conduct, Staff Sergeant? Ducker did not speak. You may answer, Staff Sergeant. Yes, Senior Chief, it is accurate. Thank you. She took one more step closer. Now she was 4 feet away. She could see the vein in his temple. She could see the sweat on his lip. Staff Sergeant, I want you to hear what I am about to say very carefully, because I am only going to say it once, and then I am going to walk away, and I am never going to think about you again. Yes, Senior Chief, I do not forgive you. He flinched. I do not forgive you, and I am not going to forgive you. Not today, not next year, not ever. You do not get my forgiveness. You did not earn it, and I am not going to give it to you because you do not deserve it and because it is not the currency you think it is. You will live the rest of your career and the rest of your life knowing what you did on that range. You will tell yourself stories about it. You will rewrite it in your head. You will try to make yourself the hero of it. And every time you do, you will feel a small, cold thing in your chest that tells you that you are lying to yourself. That small, cold thing is the part of you that knows. That part of you is never going to go away. I am leaving it with you. It is my parting gift. Ducker's jaw was shaking. Staff Sergeant, ma'am, I did not come here to break you. Gunny Valdez did that, and he did it for reasons that belong to him and to the Corps. I came here for one reason and one reason only. I came here because on Saturday morning, you looked at me and you decided I was nothing. And I have spent 3.5 years letting men like you decide I was nothing because I was tired and because I wanted a quiet life. And because I thought the uniform I am wearing right now was something I had to hide in a storage unit in Escondido to be allowed to have a garden in Vista. She paused. I was wrong, Staff Sergeant. I was wrong for 3.5 years. And I am here this morning to correct the record. I am not nothing. I was never nothing. And no man in any uniform, on any range, in any parking lot for the rest of my life, ever going to look at me again and decide I am. Is that clear? Yes, Senior Chief. Look at me when you say it, Staff Sergeant. He looked up. His eyes were wet. Yes, Senior Chief, it is clear. Good. She took one step back. Staff Sergeant Ducker, carry on with your duties. She turned on her heel. She walked back toward the staff car. And that was when the 4th Marine on the firing line, a young Lance Corporal who had been standing very still at the edge of the gallery with a rifle slung on his back, stepped out from behind the range house and said, Senior Chief. Lennox stopped. She turned. He was young, maybe 22, Asian features, dark hair under his cover. His name tape read Chen. He came to attention. He saluted. Lennox returned the salute. Ma'am, I apologize for speaking out of turn. I will accept whatever the Colonel decides about it. But I need to say something to you before you go, and I will regret it for the rest of my life if I do not say it. Colonel Okafor's eyebrows moved. She did not interrupt. Go ahead, Lance Corporal, Lennox said. Ma'am, my father's name is Kevin Chen. He was a corpsman with 2nd Battalion 7th Marines in 2017. He took a round through the chest in a village outside Singjin. He should have died, ma'am. He would have died except that a sniper on a rooftop about 800 meters north of his position put a round through the shoulder of the man who was about to put a second round through his head. My father lived. My father came home. My father raised me. My father is the reason I am a Marine today. Lennox did not move. Ma'am, my father knows the name of the spotter who called that shot. His name is Sergeant Cameron Brooks. My father has sent him a Christmas card every year for 9 years. My father has never known the name of the shooter because the shooter's name was classified, and my father was told politely to stop asking. Lennox's hands at her sides had begun to tremble. Ma'am, about a year ago, I was at a funeral for a Marine named Torres, who I had gone through School of Infantry with. And at that funeral, Sergeant Brooks was there, and I introduced myself to him, and I told him that my father was a corpsman whose life had been saved by a sniper in Sangin in 2017. And Sergeant Brooks got very quiet, ma'am, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he told me that he could not tell me the shooter's name. But he told me one other thing. He told me that the shooter was the best sniper he had ever worked with. And he told me that the shooter had saved more lives than she had ever taken. And he told me that if he ever got the chance, he was going to make sure she heard it from somebody who knew. And I did not understand at the time why he said she, ma'am. Lennox's eyes were closed. Brooks, standing by the Jeep, had a hand over his mouth. Ma'am, my father is 61 years old. He lives in Modesto. He has 3 grandchildren. 2 of them are girls. The older girl is named Lennox. He did not know your name when he named her. He just liked the name. He told my mother it felt like a strong name. It felt like a name that meant somebody who could carry something. Ma'am, I do not know if I am allowed to say this to you, but I am going to say it anyway. Thank you. My family thanks you. My father thanks you. My niece, who is 8 years old and who is named after a woman my father never met, thanks you. He saluted her. He held it. Lennox stood very still for a long time, and then slowly she brought her right hand up and she returned the salute, and she held it. And for the first time in 3.5 years, Senior Chief Lennox Marie Harrove stood in the open air in her uniform on a Marine Corps base in the sun, and she was not small anymore. She lowered her hand. Lance Corporal Chen. Ma'am, tell your father something from me. Yes, ma'am. Tell your father that I remember that rooftop. Tell him I remember the call. Tell him that when I got back from that deployment and I cried in a parking lot for 2 hours because Sergeant Brooks had told me the corpsman had lived, and I had never let myself believe until that moment that any of them lived. Tell him that his life was the first one I let myself believe in. And tell him that every year for 9 years I have wondered about him. And tell him, Lance Corporal, that today, a Marine who shares his last name stood on a range in Oceanside and gave me back something I did not know I had lost. And tell him that his granddaughter, who is 8 years old and who is named Lennox, has a name that is worth carrying. Chen was crying now. He did not hide it. I will tell him, ma'am. Good. She turned. She walked back to the Jeep. Brooks opened the passenger door for her. She did not get in. She stood there for a moment with one hand on the roof, and she looked back across the range at Colonel Okafor, at Gunny Valdez, at Lance Corporal Chen, and at Staff Sergeant Michael Ducker, who was still at parade rest, who was still looking at the concrete in front of his boots, who was not looking up because he could not, because he knew now. In a way he had not known Saturday morning, and had not known Sunday night, and had not known even 10 minutes ago exactly what kind of woman he had called sweetheart on a public range. She got in the Jeep. Brooks got in the driver's seat. They did not speak. They did not need to. He drove her off Camp Pendleton. He drove her north on Interstate 5. He drove her home to Vista. He walked her to her door. He put his hand on her shoulder for a long moment. He said, Len, yeah, Cam. You did it? We did it. No, you did it. Okay. He flew home to Virginia that night. She slept 12 hours. When she woke up Friday morning, she went into her kitchen and she made coffee and she sat at her table in her robe. And for the first time since the summer of 2022, she opened her front curtains all the way. The sun came in, she let it. And on a Saturday morning, exactly 1 week after a Marine sergeant had called her sweetheart and told her she would miss Lennox, Harrove drove back to the public range in Oceanside, walked up to Bay 4 loaded 5 rounds into her magazine and put all 5 of them through the same hole at 100 yards. Not because she had anything left to prove, and not because anyone was watching, but because she was Senior Chief Lennox Marie Harrove of the United States Navy, and she had never been, and was never going to be the woman anyone mistook her for again.